What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a movie I got to check out just a little bit early, and that movie is called Giving Birth to a Butterfly. Written and directed by Theodore Schaefer with his feature-length debut, this film was also written by Patrick Lawler and stars people like Annie Paris, Gus Burney, Rachel Roshaff, Judith Roberts, Paul Sparks, and many more. So after a premiere at the 2021 Fantasia Film Festival, this film is finally getting a release to the general public with a limited theatrical release starting on May 1st, and then later in the month on May 16th getting a VOD release so people can watch it online. And this is an interesting film because I went into it pretty curious to see what it was all about. I had no idea what it was about. I didn't see a trailer, I didn't read a synopsis. I only saw the title and saw the poster, and I remember Annie Paris from my days of watching The Following back in the day, as well as some other movies and TV shows. And so I was really interested to see what this movie was going to be all about given its title. And what I'll start this off by saying is that I found that the central themes and messages of this film are without a doubt something that I could resonate with, and something I think a lot of us can resonate with. Of course, since the film is yet to be released and it's only an hour and 17 minutes long, I'm going to steer clear from any spoilers. When the movie starts, we're introduced to a family, most notably the wife and mother in this situation, played by Annie Paris, that's named Diana. And we learn very quickly that her family dynamic is quite strange. The only one in her family who seems to be normal at all is her daughter, who in the film is played by Rachel Roshaff. And not long into the film, we realize that her husband is this dude who has this dream of opening a restaurant, but he doesn't even know what it is to open a restaurant. He's somebody who speaks a lot about all the things he wants to do, but hasn't accomplished them. And because of that, he tends to take it out on others, thinking he's better than others. He often makes comments that would belittle others and try to make him feel like a better individual, which instantly made him a very annoying character. You also have the son in this situation, who very shortly into the film introduces the family to his new girlfriend who's pregnant by another man, and this character's name is Marlene, played by Gus Burney. Not too much longer into the film, it turns out that Diana has possibly been scammed due to an online situation, that now she's lost all of her money, and the only person who's able to help her is her son's new girlfriend, Marlene, who just so happens to have a car. So the two of them take a road trip to try to discover who it is that scammed Diana, but along the way discover more than maybe they thought they were going to. I'm going to leave it vague because I don't want to spoil anything, but the base takeaway of this film, really the thing to really know about this movie, is that this is a movie about the idea of doors closing and another one opening. This is a film about the idea of us being lost and stuck in our own cages, and oftentimes putting ourselves into a box and not allowing ourselves to transition given the title. This film is called Giving Birth to a Butterfly, and I thought it was going to have a lot to do more with Marlene, who is pregnant in this film, but instead the film focuses on the idea of us going through our own personal metamorphosis and the ability to change and to grow and transform into the better version of ourselves. And I think that's something that we can all relate with, right? Complacency, making goals that we don't meet, different things like that, speaking things that you often don't act on. I think that's something that we can all kind of relate to. It's definitely something I could relate to watching this film, as I feel like I'm currently in a bit of a transitionary period in my life where I'm trying to recognize when doors are closing and when it's time to open new doors or walk into new doors. This film utilizes a lot of metaphors and symbolisms and is often layered with them in such a way that it could be a little bit tough to digest for most viewers. As somebody who's pretty obsessive with trying to understand what a movie is trying to say, by the time we got to the end, I did find myself understanding what this movie was trying to say, but unfortunately, I was not a huge fan of this movie overall. I did resonate with the overall themes and messages, which is why I wanted to start off by saying that part of the movie, and that I really found that that was the most impactful part of the film. But beyond that, I found the film to just be slow and meandering, with characters I never really found myself gripped by, dialogue that often felt stilted, and by the time I got to the end of the movie, I was starting to fall asleep. My eyes were getting heavy. I didn't fall asleep, but I had started watching this movie 30 minutes after having had a full night's rest, and the movie, the pacing, the characters was just not keeping me involved. I felt my eyelids getting heavy throughout the course of the runtime, and by the time we were coming to the third act, I was just dying for those credits to roll. So while I can appreciate the movie's themes and messages and the things that I think really work about this movie, unfortunately by the time we got to the end of the movie, I wasn't a fan. But the question is, what really works about this film? Well, I do think the film has a really interesting commentary about us as humans. There are a lot of characters throughout the course of the film that we meet that are so lost in what they think should be and could be versus maybe what can be or what will be. And I think that's something that we as humans definitely struggle with. It's something that I struggle with. I can think about so many times in my life where I've allowed myself to consistently be complacent, which is an issue with myself, and the various times that maybe I thought that life had to be a certain way or that I had it figured out, only to learn shortly after that I really didn't have it figured out, and life was going to throw me a curveball that oftentimes ended up opening a new door, giving me a new challenge, which often gave me new skills, new perspective, or set me down a path that I ended up enjoying more than the path I was currently on. And again, as somebody who feels like they're currently in a transitionary period in their life, I think that this film definitely spoke to me on that level. Unfortunately, I just wasn't a fan of how it was all relayed, as I found most of the characters to be bland, dull, and boring. I did really enjoy the character of Diana, played by Annie Paris, but it's only because she's the main character who's actually driven to do something, and by the time we get to the end of the film, she's really the only character I felt had any sort of character arc, and I think she gave the best performance in the film. Everybody else gives a fine performance. You could tell that this was the director's vision in terms of how stilted and how kind of rigid things feel at times, which I can see from a creative perspective maybe gave this film its own identity at times, but oftentimes for me held the film back from being something that would ever really be memorable or rewatchable. And I think one of the most notable things about this film, without a doubt, is the fact that the film is actually shot in 16mm and is brought to a 4:3 aspect ratio, often giving it a very old school vibe when it comes to the way that the film looks. There's something about it that's almost meant to feel and look like an old video recording from something from the early 80s. And so for the most part, I really enjoyed the aesthetic choices that this film had. The camera work is very, very simple. More often than not, it's just a camera being placed in one side of the room or in just one location with very little to no movement whatsoever, which often gave it its own unique indie identity. But unfortunately, again, I think where this movie really lost me was in its pacing, in its story, in its dialogue, in its characters. And while I was able to relate to its overall themes and messages, by the time we got to the end, I was dying for it to end. I can't recommend it. It's not a movie that I really feel is worth it. I think there are movies that have this message and theme of the idea of us, needing to find a new path in life that are far more effective. It's just not a film that really worked for me. It didn't keep me gripped. It didn't keep me entertained. I never really found myself endeared to any of the characters, and more often than not, I was just dying for the film to end. So unfortunately, that is where my heart lands when it comes to this movie. But as usual, I want to hear what you guys have to say. Are you a fan of Giving Birth to a Butterfly? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment down below. I can't wait to hear what people have to say about this one. If you guys enjoyed the video, please hit that like button because it really does help the channel out. And most notably, if you guys like movie talk like this and you want to see more here on the channel, I've got hundreds of videos and I've got hundreds more coming, and we're going to talk about a lot more movies, new and old. So again, a big thanks to the kind folks over at Cinedigm for sending me over an early screener for this movie. Check it out if you want to. Check it out if it's something that interests you. If you're watching this before or after having seen the film, come back and let me know what you thought, whatever the case may be. And I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.